everyone. This is the Flying Up podcast with Liam and Andrew. We're talking everything Essendon all season long. AFL, VFL, VFLW, wheelchair and esports, I think it's called. So let's go. Only a couple of hours.
Let's Google it.
Let's bing it. Only a couple of hours since Essendon kicks off their season against the last year's runners-up Adelaide. Talking about last season, they had a bad end, a promising season, made the finals for the first time since 2014 with a 12-10 record. They played Sydney at the SCG. Last time they played there, they were in front with a minute to go. Lost after the siren when Gary Rowan kicked a goal from the square. But this one wasn't
final,
as close.
No, this final we were about a minute in and we choked, and the result was fairly decimating. I believe it was 121 to 58. 56, and it was fairly disappointing. It was the worst possible situation, playing the team we were probably weakest against in the place we played them weakest when we were weakest, and we had a lot of injuries. I know that is the classic excuse, but we really were probably in the worst possible conditions. And it was just bad luck the way the cards fell. But nevertheless, 7th is still not a bad place to finish.
No, especially after coming last in 2016.
16, exactly, and not having played finals since 2014. So that's quite an exceptional result, really.
Well, we actually haven't won a final since 2004, and since then we've lost to Adelaide by 90-odd points in 2009, lost to Carlton in 2011 by, again, 90-odd points. We're in front by 30 points against North Melbourne, and then lost by 30 points in 2014. So we really haven't had a good luck in finals since 2004.
No.
2018 looks positive, but talking about 2016, Essendon did lose a few players. Started off in February last year using Yeast Eads, who just got delisted. But throughout the season, we got the retirees of James Kelly, Brett Stoughton, Heath Hocking. 2012 Premiership player Craig Berg got delisted. Ben Howlett and Alex Morgan, and the main one, former captain and Brownlow medalist Joe Watson.
It was a fair shift to the team lineup. Although looking at this game's lineup, at the current time of recording, we are just before the game tonight is about to start against Adelaide. But looking at tonight's lineup, it is not actually that different from the usual play. It seems that they're retaining a lot of the old players from previous seasons. The only new faces are Devon Smith, Jake Stringer, and Adam Sard that have been asked to take on the task of downing the reigning premiers. Assad, of course, former Gold Coast player. Bulldogs player. Really? I thought...
No, I think it was Stringer. Go on.
Stringer was the former Bulldogs. Assad was the former Gold Coast. Stringer was a premiership player. Was one of the few premiership players with the Bulldogs in the last 50 years. So he's coming to us at a pretty good time. And
picked him up on the last day, I think. Jake Stringer and... Doggies got pick 25 and pick 30, so Essendon only had 3 picks in the national draft.
Yeah, a lot of people were talking about Matt D as well, who is not actually a new recruit, but has only played 50 games in his career and only played, I believe, 30 last year for Essendon. He debuted in 2010 with Richmond, but struggled to get a game, and has since then gone back to the VFL until he was re-recruited through Essendon.
He's the last remaining player of the drug saga.
Yes, yeah.
So your top-up players with Crowley, Grimer, Stokes, Kelly, and so I think they're the final remaining player.
He's a full-back, so he's gonna have big shoes to fill.
Yes, well, Heath, we'll get to this a bit later when we talk about the game, but they're having hookups who should be playing forward. But let's talk about Devon Smith, 50 plus, nearly 100 games for GWS, was in the leadership group, struggled, did not play any of the 3 finals GWS played in last year, so struggled to break into the best 22. Also a bit injury prone. Probably play for the midfield as well as forward. What do you take of Devon Smith?
I think Devon Smith is. I think he's got potential. I think in a team that is this unchanged, it's going to be difficult for the new people to get a look in. The position he plays as a follower is going to make it fairly difficult to. That is also going to make it fairly hard for him to sort of gauge how good he is on one game. But I think I think it is good to have that new blood in the team. The team is young. You can't forget that Essendon as a team at the moment is pretty much entirely young. We don't have any player. I
don't think we have anyone over the age of 30.
No. So to say that someone is new and someone is old is really not that much of a difference at the moment for Essendon. And the totally new recruits aren't really that different from the people who have only played 1 or 2 seasons. So I assume, and you'd like to hope that they're all welcomed in and that they are given a chance, but I think, as far as I don't know enough about Devon Smith to say that he will or won't do well, but I'm sure he'll do his best, and would like to definitely keep our eyes on him.
And the next player is Ahmed Sadhu from the Gold Coast. He brings a lot of dash
Yeah.
off half-back. Not something Essendon was lacking last year, but something, you never have enough dash. So
No.
he's pretty much, not much to say about him. He was really good for Gold Coast. Again, the dash off half-back. Kicked a great goal in the JLT game against Richmond.
Mm.
And the last one, the big one, the package himself,
Stringer.
Jakey Stringer.
He is the package tied up in Stringer.
Pretty much. Got rid of the terrible hairdo.
Yes.
He's kept the terrible tattoos. But he came over in not the best circumstances for a player to leave a club.
No.
But he's at the Essendon now. They're trying to get him to play through the midfield. I don't know if that's going to last. And if it lasts, I don't know how good it's going to be. But he will play through the midfield. We do forget that he is an All-Australian forward, as well as a premiership player. He's only 24, so he's still very young.
There's a lot of hype around Stringer as well. I don't know if that's
Exactly,
going to put too
yeah.
much pressure on him. And particularly having come from the high standards of being a premiership player, it's, no, I wouldn't say a step backwards as such, but he's now got to sort of start again. Coming to the midfield after traditionally being a forward is going to make it somewhat difficult for him to adjust potentially.
Yeah, but maybe a lot
Although-
of that's the new thing now. A lot of tall, big body midfielders like Bont, Patrick Cripps, Fife.
And
other
it is
players.
definitely easy to go from back or forward to mid than it is to go from mid to back or forward. You'd say though.
And we'll go to the drafts as well. So Essendon didn't get an early draft pick at all. They were very, very late in the draft.
We really were relying on trades, I think.
Yeah. Well, you got rid of most of your draft picks very early on. Essendon ended up they got 3 draft picks. They got pick 49, pick 66, and pick 78. Pick 49, they got Jordan Holhand from Stewart in the SANFL, who is looks like a running midfielder with a nice vertical leap. Probably like most midfielders, he'll probably start off in the half or flank or the back line.
Yeah.
Then you got Brandon Zerk-Chacher. I think I said that correct, probably not. He's from Stewart as well. 194, so he's a key position player. 71 kilos. So unlike another player from South Australia that went to a club, Darcy Fogarty, who is 194 and like 95 kilos. So he's a bit of a skinnier lad.
Yeah.
I'll probably say, pick 66 is the later you go in the draft, the harder it looks for you to get a game, unless your name's Dane Swan and ends up winning your Brownlow.
Yeah.
But it was good to see him play. And the last one from the national draft was Max Jaff. God, why did Essendon got a lot of people with weird names this year?
Yes, yeah.
186, another midfielder, again, probably start playing defender. And you got one rookie player, Trent Minot, from the Eastern Rangers in the TSC Cup. So you got a Victorian. So no need to worry about homesickness. He's a 184, a light frame of 75 kilos. Of course, going to grow over time. So Essendon got 4 players overall. Well, 7 players plus the 3 you got in the trade. So good list not much of a different list heading into the 2018 season.
We have a pretty, we've got quite a few new people in the rucks as well. People that have been moved back as well, including Luke Lavender and Sam Draper. Also Sean McKernan, who I believe is a relatively new player, as is Leuenberger. We've got a very, very young ruck team.
Well, new to Essendon.
New to Essendon, exactly, yes, yeah. So I suppose that'll be interesting to see how they go. But then that's the nature of rucks, isn't it, that they just rotate frequently.
As well as your forward line, you got the big 3, I'll call it. You got Cale Hooker, who is usually a defender, now again playing forward. Big James Stewart from GWS, and the man, the myth, Joe Danaher, who is my tip for the Coleman medal.
Surely this year.
Very, very stiff to miss out last year, but he's like, hey, wait, I'm a good forward. I'm going to kick 10 goals against Carlton.
Yes. As it seems to be the case a bit with Danaher, he usually has a slow first few matches, which is really the only thing that stops him from winning the Coleman. If he'd had a better start to the season last year, he probably would have definitely won it. So I think that's the thing that he'll be looking to do this year, is to kick it off. No pun intended.
Yeah. It all started with the game against Melbourne, where he kicked he kicked like 1 goal 7.
Yeah.
And I think Gary Lyon or someone said on radio that he's not going to be a star. And I think the next few games he barely missed.
Yeah, he was incredible. It just seems to switch it on even during matches. It's that Danaher seems to be, can either kick 10 goals and then not kick another one for the rest of the match, or vice versa. He's incredibly skilled in the way that he can do that. Or hot and cold, I suppose some would say. But that is that I think he's almost definitely a shot again. No pun intended. At the Coleman this year. Disappointed not to win it.
Yes,
Also
and
in the forward we have Begley and Stewart. Do you know much about Begley?
Begley, yeah, I know he was a defender at one point.
Yeah.
Vice captain in 2016.
Yeah.
Definitely Begley. Yep.
Yeah.
When the whole drug saga happened, and yeah, James Shaw I mentioned from GWS was son of a from Collingwood player. Got a good start at GWS, but then Rory Lobb overtook him. Also, GWS had players like Cam McCarthy as well playing that spot, and now Perryman. So he was very lucky in opportunity. I think he played one game in 2016 before he headed off to Essendon. So it wasn't really a homesickness thing that he went home. It was more of a lack of opportunity.
Yeah, Stewart was a bit like the stringer of 2017, wasn't he? He was sort of the recruit they picked up from a successful other club that kind of came down here trying to create new opportunities, and hopefully Stringer can do what Stewart did.
Yeah, pretty well. Hopefully, yeah. And I don't think he didn't get dropped. I knew that he didn't get dropped. He played very well. James Stewart getting Essendon to one of the players who got Essendon to the finals. The main two players we'll talk about is the All-Australian in Zach Merritt, who led by example in 2016 when the whole half the Essendon team was out. But he was fantastic.
And many people were saying that he could have been captain, and I think he still has that leadership quality that makes him such a great player.
I think he might be next in line. He did I think he's the second youngest now, behind Bont as the youngest player to captain the team.
Yeah.
Which Essendon's, I think, only their third win in 2016 against the Gold Coast Suns.
Yeah, him and Bagley have that fantastic malleable quality that means that they can play almost any position. That they seem to be always there when the ball hits the ground. They are incredibly responsive, incredibly good at reading the play and finding other players to pass the ball onto, and quite selfless players in many ways as well, Merritt and Bagley.
Yeah.
Go on, Zoe.
And the last one, we'll talk about him in more detail, is Captain Dyson Heppell. He's in his second season. I think everyone knew he would be captain since he joined the club.
Yeah. He did an exceptional job as captain last year.
Exceptional job? I think he was good. I put him on the same level as Nathan Fyfe. I feel like they were on the same level as captaincy last year. They were good, but they're not up there with the Selwood or Hodges as the great captains. It's got long way to go for that.
Well, I think Stolwood is just to become a Stolwood, you need to be there for a while, and because this is only his second year as captain, he just doesn't have the time behind him. I think people look up to people like Hodge and former captains, and even your Joe Watsons, who have been sort of natural captains because they've just been there so long, and they're kind of almost like institutions. I think Heppell could become an institution. It just needs to take the time for him to become
25, so he's quite young.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, give another 3-4 years, and he'll be like I say, a stalwart. But at the moment, I think he's got everything, all the skills, all the quality, and all the backing that he needs to be a captain. And the fact that he led. I think the fact that we did have a relatively successful season last year is largely down to him. So I really do think it is just that aging now, his skills to age into stalwartness.
I agree. But also looking at Dyson Heppell, you think of captain moments, and prime example of a good captain moment was back in 2015 against Hawthorn in the semi-finals. I know Doggies got on they were dominating all over the field, but Hawthorn was dominating on the scoreboard, and it was Easton Wood who was the captain at the time, now current captain. I was really excited, so I hit my microphone. Captain at the time now, but standing captain then kicked a goal and really set the pace. And then the year before in the grand final, Shannon Hearn had a chance to do the same thing for West Coast, but missed. And not just goals, and a lot of things. I know Fife at the end of last year really stepped up. Heppell, I don't think ever took a next step. Don't know what you think about that, but I don't think I know, like I said, towards the end of the year, even though Fremantle lost most of the games, Fife took an extra step. Dane Beams took an extra step at his first year as captain of Brisbane. Stephen May has proved he's been a fantastic leader of the Gold Coast Suns. So many new captains last year.
It's interesting, though, you've named 3 coaches from sort of fairly failing clubs. Not necessarily failing, but weaker, lower clubs. The fact that Heppell is kind of just riding Essendon, the success of and the development of the younger players, I think is fine. I agree that he perhaps hasn't any of those kind of heroic moments yet, and he hasn't done anything really maybe inspiring. But I think that's just an opportunity that hasn't come up. And again, I think because once time comes around, and I wouldn't say that Nathan Fyfe he's done a great job as captain as well, but I don't think he's done any better than Dyson Heppell. I think that he's. I think if the club is doing fine, if it's rising, if it's got problems. The captain is really only there just to lead and inspire and direct the play during the game. He's not really there to change individual players' games and the overall style of the way that each club plays Aussie rules. So I think there's a lot of pressure put on captains, and the fact that Dyson Heppell didn't firstly that he didn't let his players crumble when they had a sort of dodgy few games in the middle of the season last year, and also just the fact that he's always at the front. He's always doing media releases, media related things. He's always in the public eye. He makes himself come across as a nice person and really quite sort of warm and encouraging, I think is perhaps the word I'm after. I think that is ultimately more important than doing anything sort of than being a martyr, than leading the team into the trenches. I wouldn't say he does that, but again, there hasn't been any need to. They've been doing well. They've been slowly rising, and I think he's done as much as he can to increase that.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. Before we get into our next topic, question time. This is my Essendon history fact or quiz.
Nice.
Round 1, 1897, so you're probably, 5?
Yeah, 25.
25, yeah.
Yeah. And you were 107.
Yeah, yep, I go down in age.
Say hello to Napoleon for me.
I will. I'll go down into that short level.
Sure.
Essendon, who do they play the first ever game against? Since it's round 1, we're celebrating the opening round.
1897? Was it Geelong?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did Essendon win or lose?
I've got a feeling we lost.
No.
No, we won. Because we were pretty successful for those first years. We were probably the most successful early club, really.
You won in 87. We won in 87. No, 97.
97.
Lost in 98.
If anyone just joining now, that we're talking about the 1800s, not the 1900s. Lost in 81 in 87.
97.
97, lost in
98.
98.
And then didn't play in 99, didn't play in
1900.
Yeah, 1900. Defeated Collingwood 1901, lost in 1902, and then didn't win one again to... Also, you played Carlton again in 1907, 1908.
Yep.
And then you didn't win one again until 1911.
Nice.
Fun fact.
Yeah. That fun series of facts there.
Let's kick straight off now. So AFL is not the only team Essendon has this year. That we have 4 teams. We've got, of course, the AFL.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the VFL, which will... there's really no big signings in the VFL for us to really get into. There's no ex-football players there.
No.
All we're going to know is that Dyson Heppell's brother still plays for the VFL reserve team. Unlucky to make the grand final last year in the VFL. Just lost to Richmond, I'm pretty sure. Can't remember. I was actually in China, so I'm not fully into that.
Brag.
Oh, yeah. No, I was actually in India doing some scouting for Essendon, for the future game they want to play in India, the 4 teams.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yes. The VFLW, so they don't have an AFLW team. We failed in our bid to get a team for the 2020. And haven't signed a big name yet. I know recently Hawthorn signed Sarah Perkins from Adelaide for their VFLW team. First ever wheelchair football league. Essendon, St Kilda, Collingwood and Hawthorn, I think, all have a team. So that's 4. And as well as the esports, which is electronic sporting competitions, along with teams like Gold Coast, Wellington Phoenix, I think Central Coast Mariners, Adelaide Crows.
Yeah.
So that's 5. And maybe, Essendon, Hawthorn and Fremantle, 3 teams to put a bid in for the NBL, to have an NBL team in the future.
Basketball.
Yep.
That was an idea that's been tossed around for years.
Yeah. Well, since Collingwood and GWS now have a netball team, so
yeah, naturally, yeah.
A basketball team probably wouldn't be a long shot.
It almost makes sense for them to have a netball team instead of particularly as they
turn the netball league into an AFL rip-off.
So, AFL netball, AFL ball.
So Essendon's come a long way from playing for the Bendigo Bombers. Now they're playing at the Tullamarine Airport. So no longer Winter Hill.
The fact that we were semi-finalists last year is a fair testimony to the skill of the VFL and the fact that the VFL is still that the VFL team is still very loaded with good players. I mean, it's interesting. Part of the reason why I guess this is something that happens to all the teams is that everyone's in the same boat. But when it comes to the VFL, the AFL teams bring their best players in, and so the VFL really does get left with the sort of the secondary players, and the fact that Essendon still had that, I think that's also a testimony to how even the gradient of quality and the experience and skills of the teams of the AFL of Essendon Football Club is at the moment. The fact that our VFL team and AFL team are almost interchangeable in many ways, and ultimately more successful. The VFL is ultimately more successful than the AFL team, certainly in the last few years. And the support behind it last year was huge. I think because Essendon got eliminated so early in the finals, a lot of people jumped on the AFL, the Essendon VFL bandwagon, and became huge fans of that game. I think they played Williamstown and lost, but the game against Box Hill when they were 30 points down at half time and came back to win was incredible. And I think that sort of gave people hope, not just for the Essendon VFL team, but also the AFL team. Did you watch any of the VFL finals last year?
I did watch clips of the grand final, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Talking about Essendon, now next year as well with the rumoured reserve league coming in,
Yeah.
could be detrimental. And this is more of a football conversation now than an Essendon conversation. With the talk of a pre-season draft, would you like to see, so instead of having 10 players in the VFL or the reserves league from just an Essendon list, everyone in the reserve is an Essendon listed player, and Essendon can just pick any. But unlike a contracted player, once the season's done, they either choose to pick them up on their senior list, so they're like, just say a category C rookie, and a category B is more international players, or players come from another code. So category C rookie, so someone from your reserves list. So we'll just say Darcy Heppen's brother. I think he's a midfielder. So just say for some reason, no team's going to lack a midfielder, but just say Essendon's lacking a midfielder, they can go to their VFL team or the reserves team, pick up Heppel's brother, Aaron Heppel, his name is, and play him. And then at the end of the year, they'll be like, cool, we want to draft you. So instead of going from a C grade rookie, he'll go to a listed player or a rookie player.
Yeah.
I don't know if you think that's a good idea or a stupid idea or.
I don't know how much it'll affect the actual running of the game as it is now.
It's more a ruckman issue than anything else.
Yeah, for players that are constantly on rotation, it's going to be tricky.
Yeah,
because it makes it a bit less flexible. And it is, of course, going to change the way we do the draft and the way we do trades and the end of year sort of the player exchange. That's going to add complications to that as well. But again, Essendon's players are so young. We've got so many newish people in the team that I think the difference between the reserve, the AFL, and the VFL teams at Essendon at the moment are probably more fluid than they've ever been in many ways. And I don't. Yeah, so I think it's probably not going to affect Essendon as much. But I can certainly see why that might be an issue for the running of some clubs, particularly some clubs that have huge bodies of strong players that are sort of on the verge of retirement. That might be helpful for them.
Yes, so we're only a couple of hours away to the big game, Adelaide Crows versus Essendon.
Yes. It's not as simple as just the premiership team playing against the seventh team. Yes, of course, the runner-up. Sorry, it's still taking a while. It's taking a while. It's going to take a while for me to get used to the idea that Richmond won a flag, but the idea that the runner-up team playing the seventh team, it's not quite as simple as that. I think it's going to be a lot closer. And the Hawthorn first round match last year showed that.
Well, that was a big upset. Everyone. Yeah. Hawthorn came off what coming out in straight sets, so they still had the aura about them doing the three-peaters coming up against Essendon.
Yeah.
Essendon absolutely wiped the floor of them. And talking about the Richmond thing, can't you wait to watch Richmond versus Bulldogs, the last two premiers playing off against each other?
Yes, that'll be fun.
Isn't that a weird thing to say?
Yes, yeah. If you said that in 2012, boy, I can't wait to see Richmond and the Bulldogs, the last two premiership winners, play each other. People would have thought you were mad. Now it just seems anything goes. But I think
there's a few teams, Gold Coast, Fremantle,
anything goes, except
St Kilda, Melbourne. All those teams are still pushed to the side.
They're not. There's still no hope.
So we'll go through the teams right now. I'm starting off in the back line. You've got Matthew D, Michael Hurley, Michael Hartley. So the M squad down there at the back line.
Nice. Replacing the H's.
Yes.
In the halfback, you've got Sard, Brown, and Goddard. Bit of a mix of the old and new.
Sard, Brown, Goddard.
Sounds like a song, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'm in your centre. You got David Zaharakis, Zach Merritt, and Darcy Parish. So nice. Darcy Parish in his third season. David Zaharakis is a now mature player. Zach Merritt, all Australian, coming off an all Australian season. Best and fairest the season before. That's a strong core there.
Yeah.
Playing on the wing.
Hopefully we control the centre better than we have in previous years.
Yeah, and especially having Goddard running through the wing, the middle as well will be a good look for you.
I'm also particularly interested in the half forward, which is Stringer, Hooker, and McDonald, Tip, and Woody. Probably some of the best players in the entire team, I think. So
it's interesting. Yeah, so Stringer's not playing in the not starting in the midfield. He might probably get a run through the midfield. Interesting that two of the three there start off at half back.
Yeah, yeah.
Carl Hooker was, a backman, and Anthony McDonald Tipawuti, was a backman.
Yeah.
Noah Razia Fantasia, he's out with an injury, probably for the first, I think, 4 rounds.
Yeah.
So BT won't get, he'd string out Fantasia.
We save that
fix.
pleasure this week.
In your full forward line, you got Josh Bagley. Again, another backman.
Begley.
Begley.
Begley into the Begley.
Begley.
It's weird that... Yeah,
Is that the cheese?
I think so. Yeah. And after that, we've got Stilton in forward and Camembert back. No, I think it's Begley and Bagley. It's quite a weird coincidence. That's in forward.
Joe Arnott's Biscuits. Yeah, nice. Good on him. No, but yeah, Josh Begley, another backman, Joe Danaher, and James Stewart. So you're going with the classic. I know usually. What team does this? I know Essendon does this. GWS used to. I think they still do. Freo does this. Carlton did not do this last night. The 3 tolls in the forward line.
Yeah.
The biggest issue with the forward line I look at is there's no third toll.
No.
You look at teams like, I'll give you an example, give Fremantle for an example.
Yeah, why not?
They have a third toll.
Yeah.
So a 191 centimetres. All three of your forwards are tall forwards.
Yeah, but at the same time, you don't want nothing but tall forwards because otherwise, generally tall equals slow. And one of the biggest problems we've had in previous years is the forwards not having a chance to properly score because they keep getting run down. So some fast people in the forward would be preferable. You got Danaher, who's probably the tallest player in the team.
Yeah, 200 centimetres, big lad.
Yeah,
big lad.
The followers, as we said before, Bell, Chambers, Heppel, and Smith. You can't really go wrong with that.
No,
Smith is probably the least experienced.
Very good core midfield there. That's good to look at. And on interchange, Andrew McGrath, interesting to see if he's going to continue playing off cross half back, or just like Darcy Heppel did in his second season, go into the midfield. Before he heads off to Gold Coast for the Commonwealth Games for the diving, Josh Green.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
he's an Essendon footballer first, Commonwealth medal, gold medal, Commonwealth Games gold medal winner second, surely. Yeah, and I hope he doesn't compel those. I hope he doesn't get those two sports mixed up because otherwise he'll not be a very good.
No, Kyle Langford and Connor McKenna.
McKenna.
Is Connor McKenna?
Irish. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Connor McKenna, the guy who no one can understand.
Irish?
Yes, no one can understand. I understand half what he said. If we could ever play the clip one day on the show, I could quote what he said word for word.
We could do a segment, Translate McKenna. And then on the emergencies, we've got Merritt. Interesting to see. So we've got Jay Merritt.
Yeah, the older brother.
So for a second there, I thought it was Zach Merritt. I thought it was a bizarre occurrence. Yeah, we've got Jay Merritt, Redmond, Bagley, and McKernan. Bagley's probably the most odd person to keep as an emergency, but well, it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. Bagley, as I was saying before, him and Merritt are sort of the two all rounders that we kind of have relied on in previous games. So it'd be interesting to see how why they've decided to put him on the emergency bench.
It's gonna be interesting. I don't get the new four emergency players. I don't understand.
Yeah.
I still think I know. Oh, sorry. Well, for most Victorian clubs, they don't travel as much in state, but for in-state clubs, they don't. Have only one player travels still.
Yeah.
So I find that really confusing. A player I want a big year from, and I want to ask you this as well. A big year for players not playing is Jake Long.
Yeah.
Kicked one goal against Geelong. Played a bit in 2016. Didn't play at all in 2017. The son of Michael Long. It's going to be very interesting to see how he goes. It's definitely a make or break year for him this year.
Yes, yeah. And I think they'll probably bring him in after they've sort of given some of the new people a bit of a go. But I'm surprised. Yeah, he's still probably not quite experienced enough to be in the full team, but to be a listed player. But I'm surprised they haven't put him in the emergency of the reserves. But that's the other thing about having such a huge body of players to choose from is there's so many good players out there, heaps of fantastic young players in the Essendon Bank that we just don't have places for all of them. But I'd like to say I agree. I'm really interested to see how Jake Long does it.
So this game is at Dockland Stadium at 7:50 p.m. Dockland is Etihad. I'm using old school terms here. Yeah. So another one game against LA since 2014.
Interesting. So it doesn't feel like it's been that long, but then again, Adelaide have been such a strong team over the last few years. Well,
yeah. Ever since you've defeated them in 2015, and they played final 2016, 17. They actually made the grand final and were unsuccessful. But since so have you looked at that Essendon fixture at all?
I have had a bit of a look at it. I don't know whether it's hard or easy. I mean, it's sort of. I think it's lucky we're getting our runner-up premier in the first round because that's the team we play. That's when we play the best. people say that's kind of throwing us in the deep end a little bit, but at the same time, I think it's also when they're the most exhausted team because they're the ones who played the most recently, and also we generally do play fantastic in the first round. So I'm actually kind of relieved about that. I'd rather play them than play Gold Coast in the first round than Richmond in the second round. We've got our sort of serve of most of the good teams. Just look at the end of the season when we start to play teams a second time, and we do actually play Richmond twice, I believe, which is going to be interesting. So that's probably the only thing that makes it difficult. That's the only disadvantage to this fixture, I'd say.
Well, the first 5 games we've got playing Adelaide at Docklands, playing Fremantle at Optus Stadium, the Doggies at Docklands, Port Adelaide at Docklands, and Collingwood at the MCG in the Anzac Day clash. So 5 winnable games, especially if we can get over Adelaide tonight. That's 5 winnable games.
Yeah.
We don't know what the Doggies are going to do. We're not going to know what Freo's going to do. We're not going to know what Port Adelaide's going to do this year.
Yeah.
Then after that, we've got Melbourne, Hawthorn, Carlton, Geelong, GWS, Richmond, Brisbane, West Coast, North, Collingwood, Gold Coast, Fremantle, Sydney, Hawthorn, St Kilda, Richmond, and Port Adelaide to end the season.
You know the best thing? We don't play Sydney in Sydney. That is music to my ears. That is such a relief.
Yes.
So yeah, that'll be a good thing. Unless we inevitably when we get to the finals.
Just don't make sure we don't let Brendan Goddard kick out.
Yeah,
to go in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There was a must there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we go, predictions.
I think tonight.
Predictions. We'll do tonight and the season then.
Okay,
Why not?
fair enough. And just in players and stuff. Well, I think tonight we've got a fair chance of winning. I wouldn't be surprised if they lost, but I also at the same time wouldn't be afraid to bet money on them winning. I think the trick with tonight is going to be to just sort of harness that energy that we have, the momentum that we seem to spur on in the first round. We also have a lot of I think because Essendon's fan base is so huge at the moment, there seems to be a lot of energy and electricity to the first round because there's been so much anticipation. So that I think is one of the reasons why we play so well. Yeah, I think we've got a good chance. And in terms of where we'll finish on the predictions for the ladder, and saying this now, you can take this as a soundbite so that we can use it as a prediction to show how right or wrong we were in 12 months' time, in 8 months' time. But I think that I think that we're probably going to finish 4th this year.
It's funny actually. It's such a close season, and Essendon's the main team. You look at one prediction has Essendon, I think some tipped Essendon to win the flag. Next person's prediction has Essendon missing the 8 altogether.
Yeah.
It is a fascinating season. It's going to be great. I have Essendon. They should challenge for the top 4. I don't think if we don't make the top 4, I'm not surprised, but I think we should challenge for the top 4.
Yeah, that's a pretty good assumption. But at the same time, it's kind of a bit defeatist not to assume you're going to win the flag. I mean, like it's fair. We're definitely outsiders. I think there's a lot of teams that probably better chances to win the premiership, but at the same time, every single team can win it. And the last few years have been revolutionary in the way that they've shown any team can win. There's absolutely no one thought the Bullies would win at the start of 2016. No one thought that Richmond would win at the start of not the general public thought that Richmond would win at the start of last year. It really could be anyone's game. Essendon's due for another premiership. We haven't won one since 2000. So I don't think it's a good healthy mentality to go into it saying, we'd be lucky if we finish 4th. We'd be lucky if we won. We're here to win. So
I hate. You listen to all the radio shows and I think Richmond can go back to back. Well, yeah, they're in it.
Yeah,
It was the prelim final. They defeated Geelong in the prelim final, and I saw this on Twitter. I think it's time we start taking Richmond seriously. Sorry, they've in the qualifying final. So they were one game away from a grand final. So I was like, I think it's time we start taking Richmond seriously. I took Richmond seriously last year when they were in the top 4 for the majority of the season.
Exactly, yeah. And when they beat teams like Hawthorn comfortably.
They were a game, so they went through that period of the four losses by under a goal. One of those wins, they would have finished first.
Yeah.
Really, so they should have won all those games. They should have been first by a couple of games.
Yeah.
So Essendon are in it to win it. I think, you've done it 16 times. Why not do it in 17th? It's pretty simple. It's simple as that. It's simple mathematics. But yes, we'll come back next week and we'll review round 1. We'll preview the start of the VFL season. Look at the VFLW season. We'll more in depth detail of the AFL wheelchair. Only a little bit of information today. The more we know, the more we'll let everyone else know. This is the Flying Out Podcast with Liam and Andrew. Thank you for being on, Andrew.
Thanks for listening. Thank you for having me, Liam. We look forward to next week. We'll see you then. We look forward to next week. We'll see you then. We look forward to next week. We'll see you then. We look forward to next week. We'll see you then.